Theosophists, dear friends. Hello, we are thrilled to see all of you at our seminar, The Secret Doctrine, which is held together with Russian and foreign Theosophists. Today, we are glad to welcome all listeners to our seminar who have connected, and all the members of the group. Today, we are with Mr. Pandey, um, the national lecturer of Indian section, the president of the Federation Uttar Pradesh Uttarakhand, India, Mr. Narashyupkin Sergey, PhD of Physical and Mathematics Science, the professor of High School Physics, St. Petersburg, Anikela, the Theosophic Society of the UK, Erika Gergadis, the director of European School of Philosophy, Greece, Mr. Francisov Sergey, PhD of History and St. Petersburg, Russia, professor. Uh, Miss Agi from Finland, Theosophical Society. Uh, the, welcome to welcome our Korean uh, member and Theosophical Society of Russia, Nizhny Novgorod, Ms. Uzhizlaeva, Vice President of Theosophical Society from Canberra. Dear friends, dear listeners, today you are going to share your questions, your congratulations, and your comments in the Q&A section. And by the end of the seminar, we're going to publish our review and video where we are share our answers to your questions. This rubric has become very popular, and the name of it is Philosophical Quiz. We are welcoming you to be active, to participate, to ask your questions, and to share your ideas by Q&A section. We have published several videos on the prologue of the first, second, third sloka of the first stanzas of the Secret Doctrine. This video has been visualized more than 3,000 persons, and of course, it suscites great interest among our listeners. Our seminar, as you know, is not only for those who are acquainted with the secret doctrine and have been studying it. It is also for those who are only interested and start getting to know it. We are going to be with you about 2 hours. Please do not leave our seminar. Let's respect each other's work. And after the last speaker finishes his speech, many people disconnect. Please do not do so until you hear the final comments of the Theosophical Research Group. These comments may be very interesting and insightful as those of our speakers. Let us stay tuned till the end of the seminar. Dear friends, today we work with our translators, Olga Tomsyuk, Sergey Nasetkin, Anastasia Pispalova, Maria Ponomareva, and we recognize and acknowledge their help that they provide us with during all the seminar. We also would like to thank the members of the scientific group and the listeners who have already connected. We see the participants from many countries. It's not only Russian participants and some Russian cities, Yekaterinburg, Samara, Ufak, Voronezh, Sochi, St. Petersburg, Moscow, etc., but also from our foreign colleagues.
Listeners from different countries have joined us: India, the Ukraine, Italy, Greece, Finland, the United Kingdom, Korea, Moldavia, Belarusia, Germany, Kazakhstan, and other countries.
Today, we are presenting the fourth Sloka, Stanza 1 of Zian, Mr. Kolgan, PhD of Moscow Aviation Institute, Evgenia Kastamoniti, the Theosophical Society of Greece, Athens, Mr. Ram Prakash, the United Lodge of Theosophists in England, Bangalore, Helena Melnitz, the Theosophical Society of the Ukraine, Kiev. We wish all of you fruitful, insightful work. So the scientific seminar, The Secret Doctrine of Helena Blavatsky, about studying of the fourth sloka, stanza 1, is officially open. The introduction, we are glad to let Vladimir Yari to present it, Adamant Lodge, Russia, Moscow.
Good afternoon, dear friends. I welcome all brothers and sisters with love to you all. Today's topic, the topic of our workshop today, is the fourth Sloka of the first Stanza Dzyan. The 7 ways to bliss were not, the great causes of misery were not, for there was no one to produce and get ensnared by them. The thought of the day today is the following. It will coincide with the topic which is proposed for discussion for us today. The thought of the day is the following. Neither by the eyes, nor by spirit, nor by sensuous organs, nor by austerity, nor by sacrifices can we see Brahma. Only the pure, by the light of wisdom and meditation, can see the pure deity. Let us go from the reverse here to the moment of eternity, the essence of the thought of the day. For eternity is reflected in the day, well as the thought of the day. In Buddhism, the teachings of the Blessed One, an important factor is the cause. The cause, which is related to the causal cause. These causes are called nidanas. As the 12 causes of existence, or the chain of causality, the concatenation of cause and effect along the whole series of existence through the 12 links. It is a fundamental tenet of the Buddhist thought, the understanding of which solves the riddle of life, revealing the emptiness of existence and preparing the mind for nirvana. In the book of Helena Ivanovna, The Ways of Spirit, in her article The Foundation of Buddhism, there is an enumeration of the order of nidanas starting from the 12th one. The 12th nidana tells us the following. Existence is suffering, or it contains old age, death, and 1,000 suffering. This 12th nidana is symbolized by the nidana of the tiger. At the wheel of time, if we take a look at the row of nidanas, then the first one is the 12th nidana, like Helena Ivanovna said, starting from the 12th one. And we start clockwise. We are moving clockwise. So the first one is the tiger. The 11th nidana, I suffer for I am born. The nidana is hare, and the symbol is death. It symbolizes death, this nidana. The 10th nidana is I am born because I belong to the world of being. Nidana is symbolized by the dragon. The 10th nidana is I am born for I belong to the world of being, is the nidana of dragon. The 9th nidana, I am born for I nurture existence in myself. Nidana is the snake. The 8th nidana, I nurture it, for I have desires. The nidana is horse. The 7th nidana, which is the goat, I have desires, for I have sensations. The goat. The 6th nidana, which is the monkey. I sense, for I am in touch with the outside world. The 5th nidana, which is the rooster, the bird. This is the contact which is made by the actions of my six senses. It means that the rooster symbolizes the six senses. The fourth nidana is my feelings manifest for being a person. I oppose myself to the impersonal. The nidana is the dog. The third nidana, the nidana of the boar. I am a person, for I have a consciousness imbibed with the consciousness of this person. The symbol is the boar, as I have already mentioned. The second nidana, it symbolizes the mouse, which is the consciousness which was created as a result of my previous existences. The nidana of the mouse, the symbol is also about karma and accumulation. And the third nidana, it is the nidana of the ox. These existences clouded my consciousness, for I did not know. So here, in this row, clockwise, like Helena Ivanovna writes, we can count 12 nidana clockwise. And also, we really need, and it is typical, to take this 12-fold formula and enumerate it backwards. So this way, the first nidana becomes avidya, obscuration, ignorance, symbolized by the ox. Then there is samskara, karma, symbolized by the mouse. Vijnana, consciousness, the symbol is the boar. Namarupa, form, sensuous and non-sensuous, symbolized by the dog. The fifth nidana, Shat Ayatanga, 6 transcendental organs of senses or sensations. The symbol is the rooster. The sixth one is Sparsha, the touch. The symbol is monkey. The seventh, Vidana, which is feeling. The symbol is goat. The eighth one is Trishna, desires and cravings, symbolized by the nidana of the horse. Upadana, the ninth nidana, which is strivings and attachment. It is symbolized by the nidana of the snake. The 10th is Bhava, which is being, symbolized by the nidana of the dragon. The 11th is Jati, birth, which is symbolized by the nidana of the hare. And the 12th one is Jaramarana, which is old age and death, symbolized by the tiger. So this way, you see, we can go in 2 directions, centrifugal and centripetal forces, or clockwise and counterclockwise. This is an obligatory necessity to be able to read in this way. The source and the root cause of all miseries of humanity is obscurity, is ignorance. Gautama claimed that ignorance was the greatest crime, for it is the cause of all human sufferings, forcing us to value what is not worthy of being valued, to suffer where there should be no suffering, and, taking illusion for reality, to spend our lives in pursuit of insignificant values, neglect what is really the most valuable of all, which is the knowledge of the mystery of human existence and destiny. Gautama also spoke about the light that can dispel this darkness, which is the knowledge of the 4 noble truths. And these 4 noble truths are the following: suffering of the incarnate being resulting from constantly recurring births and deaths. The second noble truth is that the cause of these sufferings is obscurity. Thirst for satisfying your own earthly desires, in the incessant recurring cycle of being, or the cycle of rebirth. The third is the cessation of suffering, is about the state of enlightenment and all-inclusiveness, thus creating the possibility of conscious interception of the cycle of existence on earth. The fourth one, the way to cease the sufferings is to gradually strengthen the elements, which is very important, gradually changing the elements, which is aimed at improving in order to destroy the causes for existence on earth and reaching the great truth. The way to this truth was separated by God into 8 stages. The first of them is right understanding, which is about the law of causality. The second one is the right thinking, the third one is the right speech, the fourth one is the right action, the fifth one is the right living, the sixth is the right labor, the seventh is the right vigilance, and the eighth one is the right concentration. A person, by implementing these provisions, is liberated from the sufferings of the existence on earth, which are the result of ignorance, desires, and passions. When this liberation is achieved, the person achieves nirvana. Nirvana is the quality encompassing all actions, the richness of all inclusiveness. True knowledge flows with the thrill of enlightenment. Gautama also spoke about 10 obstacles called fetters or shackles. First one is the illusion of personality. The second one is doubt. The third one is superstition. The fourth one is physical passion. The fifth one, hatred. The sixth one is attachment to earth. The seventh one is the desire for pleasure and comfort. The eighth one is pride. The ninth one is complacency. And the 10th one is ignorance. In order to achieve higher knowledge, we need to cast off these shackles. This way, we became acquainted with the reasons for existence and how to become liberated from the sufferings on earth. Dharma is nothing but the flow of immediate changes in the groupings of skandhas, in their combinations of manifest being and perception of conditions in the now given, reflected by the consciousness according to the activity of the mind. Let us try, according to the conditions created by us based on the thought of the day and the cause for links between nidanas, dharmas, let us try to group the new combination of skandhas. What do we feel according to the essence of the meaning of the thought as a stream of eternity? Neither by the eyes, nor by spirit, nor by sensuous organs, nor by austerity, nor by sacrifices can we see Brahma. Only the pure, by the light of wisdom and meditation, can see the pure deity. In fact, Sloka 4 tells us about the 7 ways to liberation, or gaining purity, allowing the disciple to see the deity in its suchness. So there are 7 ways, 7 paths leading to this state of consciousness when a person can actually see the deity in nirvana. According to the grouping of nidanas in their concatenation of the samsaric existence of consciousness, in the wheel of the good law, the cause and effect relations are expressed by the spiral of the century, year, month, week, or focused by the hour, minute, second, and a moment. They bring us an abundance of opportunities. Well, imagine. There are nidanas which for us symbolize all these ideas about a month, week, year, etc., day, minute, to a single moment. They are all focused on this day. And according to the thought of the day, of course, this purity will help us to seize this moment, this opportunity. In order to do this, in order for these combinations to be spotted, we need knowledge to understand that. And then 7 of the 8 obstacles of the shackles will not prevent us from liberating ourselves and reaching nirvana. This is what Gautama Buddha says about the 8 shackles. But what is surprising is the fact that the first is understanding, but understanding depends on the knowledge and the ability. And this knowledge and ability, this is the 8th as the eternity. But it is also, well, it is the necessity. And then there are 7 more shackles. So then we see that the 7 paths to nirvana, the 7 paths to liberation, which are mentioned in the stanza of Dhyan, for us, they are determined by this Sloka 4 of the first stanza of Dhyan. Well, our century, as of today, is the white dragon. The white color symbolizes ether or metal. It means the element, and the dragon itself symbolizes being or wisdom. The year of the white ox, the element is ether, metal, well again, and the ox symbolizes ignorance or avidya. The month is that of the white tiger. Imagine this all in spirals. The month of white tiger, the element is ether, metal again, and again this is about completion. The ether is the element which brings us, in fact, all the information or vibrations of the sound or the voice of logos, the word. So according to this ethereal idea, it is completed, and it allows us, when completed, to hear the heart. You cannot hear it by our own physical ears, but we can hear it by our own heart, by astral and mental organs of senses. And the day today is of the blue dog. The element is air, so the blue dog contains everything. The month, the year, the century, the week, the day, everything is focused, is concentrated. You see, it becomes manifested. And the dog symbolizes the personal aspect, the strength of the personality, which is manifested. The manifested person. And the personality is sensuous. And according to the senses, according to the experience, the person is manifested either on the outside or on the eternal perception. So the teaching of Buddha was the teaching of heart and the teaching of mind, so the outside mind. Means that everything is focused now and here. Whether our thinking, speech, action, life, labor, self-discipline, mindfulness, concentration are pure. The nidana of the dog symbolizes the strength of the personality. Well, if the personality is strong, is established in the purity of thoughts and the very perfection, then the knowledge of the truth becomes available. But on this thorny path, nidana as the generation of the cause revealed as a result of the illusory perception of the reality by the consciousness of the dual vision, then klashas as these shackles or obscurations of the soul identify, taking into account the perception of our consciousness. They influence our consciousness. Every nidana has its own obscuration of the consciousness, or the obscurations are the following. The century of the dragon, its klasha is anger. You see, it is very important. It is very important to know this obscuration, because then we for ourselves can determine that in this day or this century, as we see, which is the 21st century, the 21st century is under the ray of this nidana, of the white dragon. So you see, the century will be all about anger. The whole century will need to control ourselves, to control our feelings, in order not to let this anger inside, not to express anger, but to take control over our feelings. We need to take this into account during the whole century. The ox, which symbolizes the year which we are living now, this is the year of the white ox. It also symbolizes the clash of ignorance. It means that during the whole year, we will be in this state of mind where we are uncertain, but at the same time, we need to know that if we are in the state of ignorance, and if we are always in this state of ignorance, then the state of ignorance will allow us to strive for knowledge. It means that for the whole year, we will be pushed for knowledge. The month is the tiger. Then again, the tiger itself symbolizes birth. And the klasha of this tiger is recklessness. You see, recklessness, it means that such anarchic, chaotic state of mind. Recklessness, well, it is really like irresponsibility. So we need to control ourselves in this regard, and we can win over it by attention and by concentration. So you see, you can always overcome a klasha with something, like you overcome ignorance with knowledge. Yes, it will be overcome this way. Anger with warmth, and in the tiger, well, recklessness can be overcome by concentration. And the nidana of the dragon again, which is about anger, here this is our week. And then again, it strengthens the century. So this week we are living now, there is even more anger, which we need to overcome with warmth and cordiality, by compassion. And the day of the dog, it is the klasha of passion and desire. And this desire, as of today, should be won over by patience. For this, you need patience. And patience depends on assumptions. And it actually works the following way. It works with the law of relativeness. So the law of relativeness allows us to take a philosophical position regards to life. And when we treat life in this regard, it allows us to become free, to become liberated. And this is how we cast off the shackles preventing us from self-fulfillment, from ascension, and from improving ourselves to reach nirvana. Since nidanas are among the most subtle and profound teachings of the Eastern metaphysical system, then there is no way to deal with this issue in more detail, according to Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. It actually is very meaningful. First off, the teaching of Gautama itself, well, related to nidanas or causes, it is the most metaphysical and the most complicated of systems due to the fact that a person is a very complicated structure. And understanding a person requires understanding these causes, the causes of nidanas, which are from the causeless cause of all. And the causeless cause of all is nothing but the state of nirvana. So the whole chain of kloshas, anger, ignorance, recklessness, anger again, desire, and what we need to take into account in the first place, we need to prevent from happening. We need to overcome it by the opposites, to win over it by the opposites. This, how Theosophy, which spiritualizes eternal life in the impermanent, is introduced into life. Thank you all for your attention. Oh, thank you so much. We welcome you for the information provided to us about the energies of the Nidanas. We now know the unique energies which are here with our workshop. So, dear friends, we meet the first speaker of the Theosophical Seminar, Mr. Sergey Kolganov, candidate of Philosophy Sciences, Department of the Moscow Aviation Institute, Russia, Moscow. Please, Sergey Vitalyevich.
Hello to everybody, all colleagues. We would like to thank all organizers for the possibility to do the report. Let's start. So the Sloka being considered is a very important one, and it touches upon fundamental world outlook issues. In the comments to it, the genius of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky is fully manifested. Therein she cites the well-known Indian formula that the supreme being or non-being is Sat Chit Ananda, or being, consciousness, bliss. In these words, in the concentrated form, the whole meaning and purpose of human life is expressed. Any person who is in his right mind and strong memory will deduce for himself these values as being very fundamental ones. We will try to demonstrate this by contrasting to them the opposite categories. Firstly, long live the being, for it is opposed by the opposite category of non-being, the striving for which is unnatural for a normal person, and in Christianity it is also considered to be the gravest sin. Secondly, the opposite of consciousness is the absence of a conscious state. Breaks in consciousness, according to the Indian philosophical tradition, certainly exist, but they are quickly replaced by a new consciousness, in a new body, in a new environment, as a result of the soul reincarnation. In fact, a non-religious person doesn't believe that the characteristics of this environment are generated by causal factors coming from his past lives. And the consciousness of such a new person is not a tabula rasa, a blank slate, a term from the philosophy of John Locke, due to the gaps in the functioning of his memory. A person simply cannot remember past lives, as Gautama did 2,500 years ago, when recalling his 550 earthly reincarnations. Every religious person strives with all his might for the joy of eternal consciousness. In the Christian Orthodox tradition, the same idea is enshrined in the bright Sunday of Christ, Easter. being the main religious holiday as a return to the lost consciousness through the expectation of the resurrection from the dead. Thirdly, the bliss is what we always choose as being opposed to suffering. But one has to be Siddhartha, in whose life 4 fateful meetings happened and whose life until the age of 30 can be compared with the fairy tale of the princess and the pea, in order to feel all the variety of everyday refined types of suffering that fill our life so much. We present here only a small part of the sufferings. Birth is a suffering, health disorder is a suffering, illness is a suffering, death is a suffering, contact with unpleasant is a suffering, separation from the pleasant is a suffering, lack of possession of the desired leads to a suffering, causality also it limits the freedom of action, and it is also a suffering. The variability of life, of being, for example, a constant change in retail prices, it's an enormous suffering. And as a result, this way the suffering's number tends to infinity. Hence, in this Sloka, an absolutely correct conclusion is drawn. This system is based on the great truth that one should be afraid of reincarnation, as the existence in this world brings to a person only suffering, misery and pain. And from here comes the first noble truth of the Buddhist path. There exists a suffering. So the concept of suffering has such an all-encompassing character in the Buddhist tradition that while showing the highest feeling for relatives and friends, we shouldn't use the solemn word love, but the word compassion instead. And how can one love the various manifestations of Maya which only lead to suffering and annihilation? So the being in samsara, it brought everybody to the highest punishment. And that's why it's not good. The text being discussed also mentions 7 paths to bliss, and these, of course, are not well-known 9 Christian beatitudes. Helena Petrovna explains in the comments to the Secret Doctrine what these 7 paths are. These are certain abilities, knowledge of which is given to those who deeply study the occultism. Indeed, if one diligently observes the prescriptions of the initial stage of classical yoga, yama, Patanjali yoga, then in the life of such a person, the following supernatural forces, siddhi, begin to manifest themselves. First, observance of non-violence, ahimsa. It creates a peaceful atmosphere around the yogi, neutralizing any hostility, and even hungry animals do not attack yogis. Because when person fears something, then animals can feel this fear, and then an animal can attack fearful person. And thanks to truthfulness, satya, the words of a yogi always turn out to be true, no matter what he says. No stealing, asteya, brings without any effort all kinds of treasures to the practitioner. Everything necessary comes to him without his efforts. Non-possession, aparigraha, literally non-clinging to everything around. Freedom from hoarding and generosity gives one access to the understanding of one's current and previous births. And at last, observance of 5th brahmacharya gives a yogi tremendous strength, endows his body with power and makes him charismatic. If we recall the highest siddhis, and before we talked about the lower ones, then there are at least 7 of them. In particular, the ability to make one's body invisible, the ability to turn out in any distant point in space, etc. And once again, it reminds us about virtual existence. Special attention should be paid to the theory of the flow that appears in this paragraph, which in Buddhism is represented as a flow of initial bricks of the universe, of dharmas. The word flow clearly shows the Buddhist theory of that dharmic composition of being, according to which the reality consists of particles of varying degrees of density. In Buddhism, dharma means eternal and unchanging elements of the impersonal life process, which are flashes of psychophysical energy. So Blavatsky doesn't use much the term dharma in her work, but it is one of the most important concepts of Buddhist philosophy, along with the concepts of nirvana and karma. Without it, we should remember that there are 7 main notions, and without it we cannot imagine the Buddhist theory of psychocosmos, not the cosmos in the common sense. Because any thought can impact our being very much. So we cannot talk about unchangeable being. So not the cosmos in the common sense, but psychocosmos. On this slide you can clearly see what does the 31 levels of existence in Hinayana Buddhism represent. If good karmas prevail in a person's stream of consciousness, then he receives a favorable karma, and he can spend the next life at a higher level of existence. Let us cite the statement of Rosenberg, being the classic of Russian Buddhism, regarding dharmas, which deserves our attention in connection with further considerations. The concept of dharma in Buddhist philosophy is of such an outstanding importance that the system of Buddhism, in a certain sense, can be called the theory of dharmas. Thus, we emphasize in the philosophy of Buddhism that specific feature thanks to which it differs from other directions of Indian philosophy. It is the dharmas that form the groups that are called skandhas in the philosophy of Buddhism. Dharmas are instantaneous, they continuously appear and disappear, their agitation forms both a person and the world itself. It is the dharmic composition of not only physical, but also of other more important planes of existence that changes at the rate of 1/1000th the speed of lightning flashing. As a result thereof, we can imagine how instantaneously the process of cohesion of elements in the dharmic flow are carried out. The reality in this case is very reminiscent of a giant kaleidoscope. People who used to disassemble the kaleidoscope didn't find fabulous worlds inside. Just a bunch of small mirrors and colored glass pieces that was all that awaited them. The same applies to the illusory stream of particles of being which H.P. Blavatsky speaks about. Let us cite the remark of the other outstanding Russian Orientologist Turchinov regarding the insurmountable difficulties of rational comprehension of the world. Language, in principle, cannot adequately describe reality, because all linguistic forms are inadequate to reality. Philosophical thinking operating with concepts and categories is also inadequate. Logical thinking is unable to comprehend reality as it is, and language is unable to describe it. Consequently, no ontology, no science of being is possible, because it will always be connecting not with reality, but with our ideas about it, or even with some pseudo-reality, constructed by our thinking skills and false ideas. Everything that is real is indescribable. Everything that can be described is unreal. Does this mean that reality is fundamentally incomprehensible? No, because what is inaccessible to logic and discourse is accessible to yogic comprehension, while in the act of wisdom understanding, the yogi bodhisattva sees the world as it is, besides our deforming perceptions. This is the world in its suchness, tathata, and non-duality, advaya, that reigns in this world. There is no place in it for the opposition of subject to object, one to many, rest to movement, etc., because each element in such a pair is empty by itself, acquiring the appearance of reality only thanks to its own empty opposite, which in itself is just as empty. In relation to the concept of dharma, it is worth remembering another concept of Buddhism, anatman. Anatman means not denying the existence of the eternal principle that has a connection with the flow of dharmas, but it means affirming the untrue nature of an empirical person, his non-identity with an Atman, the true self. We are accustomed to the fact that a person is present and interacts with three spheres of being: with the natural environment first, second, with the world of things created by one's own hands, an artificial habitat, and thirdly and finally with the society. From the point of view of the theory of dharmic flow and anatman, our reality is more similar not to a technosphere, sociosphere or biosphere, but to a virtual reality, and in life's adventures the participant is a person who is more like the one among the characters in a computer game fighting for life in the desert of reality, surrounded with a computer scenery, Maya, where both the object and the subject itself are illusory. At the dawn of the 20th century, as Rosenberg wrote, that for the Buddhist thinker there is no separate man and sun, but there is a certain unified field of experience, a person who sees the sun. The theory of flow and the theory of insubstantiality of the human soul poses the most important question for the Buddhologist. Who then is reborn, reincarnated in samsara? There is no answer to it. And let's recall that Buddha himself, who answered with silence to some metaphysical, philosophical questions, in particular to the following ones: is the universe eternal or is it not? Is the universe finite or is it infinite? Are jiva, the body, the same? Or is jiva one thing and the body is another one? Does an arhat exist after death or does it not? Or does it exist or does it not exist at the same time after death? Or does it neither exist nor does it not exist after death? And all of this will also pass away. It is one of the most famous and wisest saying which informs us about the only thing that is guaranteed in our life. It is a change. If we get stuck in an unpleasant situation, it may seem that in the future little will change, but be sure to know that the change cannot be stopped. Let's give up the habit of thinking that everything will remain unchanged forever. There is no absolute stillness and peace in the world, for this world is only an endless stream of Maya. What I would like to say: live eternal consciousness, long live eternal consciousness, and all the rest is of secondary value. The more a person lives, the more one understands that everything else is of secondary importance. Thank you for your attention. Thanks to interpreters and organizers.
Yes, Sergey Vitalyevich, thank you very much. Your research work was very interesting, and we saw very fine features in it. And I think this research is very useful, not only for theosophists and scientists, but also for all our listeners. This is a very deep analysis and very useful information that you shared with us today. Thank you very much. I think one of the most important aspects of the research of the Stanza is the the usefulness of the law of analogy and relativity. These laws we can apply to our human consciousness. So this is the idea that I got. Thank you very much for your research. Thank you, and we invite our next speaker, Ifigenia Kastamoniti, Theosophical Society of Greece, European School of Theosophy, Greece, Athens. Please, you're welcome.
Greetings from Athens, Greece. Thank you very much for inviting me again. It's very nice to be here with you, sharing thoughts and participating in this online seminar. So, the 7 Way to Bliss. Dear fellows and participants, what are these 7 ways? The 7 paths or ways to bliss of non-existence, comments Elena Blavatsky, did not exist because the universe was still empty and existed only in the divine thought. But when she was asked about them in the Blavatsky Lodge meetings, she mentioned that the subject was far more fully treated of in the Aryasanga school. Now we know that Aryasanga is the one who taught his students what we read in the Voice of the Silence. The 3 fragments from the book of the Golden Precepts were translated by Elena Blavatsky, as she writes in her introduction to this little book, which she dedicates to the very few. So let us first turn to the words written in the last part of fragment 2 on page 43. Thy time will come for choice, O thou of eager soul, when thou hast reached the end and passed the 7 portals. In the next fragment of the Voice of the Silence on page 45, we see that the 7 paths or ways or portals are also called paramitas, noble gates of virtue, 7 strongholds guarded by powers. Apparently, these are the first set of gateways through which the pilgrim soul should pass, or the aspirant and the neophyte. But before achieving this, he is called to avoid every temptation lurking at its corner on his way, to develop each one of the virtues, to conquer oneself, to control one's personal ego, and thus become able to unlock the 7 portals, the one after the other, by using the golden keys. This portal to the other shore and gradually to the non-existence. Then on page 65 of the Voice of the Aryasanga says, once that the Soani hath crossed the 7th path, all nature thrills with joyous awe and feels subdued. The Soani is the candidate who has taken the first initiation. And again, on page 66, we read, shall he not use the gifts which it confers for his own rest and bliss, his well-earned will and glory? He, the subduer of the great delusion, nay, O thou candidate for nature's hidden lore. Nature is also mentioned in the words of Zenon, the Stoic philosopher of ancient Greece, who says that the final goal towards which nature leads us is virtue. According to the Stoic philosophy, now nature is governed by necessity and fate. In many traditions, necessity seems to be a divine power, a force which rules everything in the manifested universe, perhaps even in the unmanifested one. One might say it could be that force which defines the periodical appearance and disappearance, or the Manvadaras and the Pralayas of a cosmos. She could also be related to karma and the lords of karma collectively in the manifested universe. So the idea of necessity can be seen in many cosmological myths and systems of antiquity, some related with fate, some with destiny, and others with both. For example, if we have a look in Greek mythology, we see that necessity is called ananki, a word which also means coercion, and she is a goddess, a cosmic force standing higher than all gods and goddesses. She is related with fate and is usually shown weaving everybody's destiny on her loom. She has wings on her head because she can fly about and modify the fate of a person, God, or cosmos according to her will and the law, and it is said that even the gods cannot escape the grip of necessity. One might also say that in the Stoic teachings about nature being governed by necessity, we meet the notion of the karmic law initiated by the Nindanas, as mentioned in Sloka 4. In other words, the karmic law is initiated by the 12 causes of existence, or the chain of causation, the concatenation of cause and effect in the whole range of existence through 12 links, as we read in the Theosophical glossary. The main issue of stanza 1 is that there is no manifestation yet at this stage, and in Sloka 4 we are told that there is no ignorance nor illusion to awaken these nindanas, the causes of being, which, belonging to the stream of catenated law, produce merit and demerit, and finally bring the karmic law into full sway, as we read in Elena Blavatsky's comments. Furthermore, they are the enumeration of the chief causes which produce the severest reaction of effects under the karmic law. Being moral agents in the universe, they are included in the Maya, the illusion or ignorance, which awakens them, as she explains in the Blavatsky Lodge meetings. So the new Manvantara of our solar system had not dawned yet. There was no differentiation and the cosmos had not come into being. This means that life on our earth had yet to appear and all its kingdoms to start evolving, it's following its own line of development and evolution. And here arises the question, how could the 7 ways to bliss appear when humanity had not been born? How could this be then? The dauntless hearts of the voice of the silence had yet to appear among the members of humanity, with each one treading on their own special way, one of the 7 rays, and pursue the truth by following the teachings of the presiding masters, the heads of these rays, thus becoming able at some point in one's long life through countless incarnations to cross the paramita heights. There were no pilgrim souls, nor neophytes and aspirants to fight and strive against ignorance, illusion, faults, and all the other obstacles which block the way to these paths. There were no initiates to make their choice in front of the 7 portals, neither those who, having traversed the human kingdom after the 5th initiation, stand at the threshold of the superhuman life as liberated spirits, having a new set of 7 paths in front of them to choose, and are about to wear one of the 3 vestures spoken of in the voice of the silence. There was nothing of all of the above, neither the 7 ways to bliss, nor the Nidanas and Maya, not yet, because everything was still in the divine ideation, the divine unity from which all proceeds, whither all returns, as we read in the poem. This unity is symbolized by the immaculate white disk within a dark black circle, a symbol that we see in the poem. It is the symbol of the one life, eternal, invisible, yet omnipresent, without beginning or end, yet periodical in its regular manifestations, between which periods reigns the dark mystery of non-being. unconscious yet absolute consciousness, unrealizable yet the one self-existing reality, truly a chaos to the sense, a cosmos to the reason, specifies Elena Blavatsky. The word chaos now, as is used in the secret doctrine, should not be considered as disorder. It means abyss and void, which, however, is also a plenum, a space completely full of undifferentiated matter. So this chaos is a pre-order, as Joy Mills puts it in her book Living in Wisdom, page 16, and contains all the possibilities of ordering. Chaos is a Greek word and is mentioned by the Greek poet Hesiod in his Theogony. And as Elena Blavatsky points out in Secret Doctrine 1, in the footnote of page 336, chaos is infinite, boundless, endless, and beginningless in duration, space filled with darkness, which is primordial matter in its precosmic state. For in its etymological sense, chaos is space, according to Aristotle, and space is the ever unseen and unknowable deity in our philosophy. Hesiod uses this word to define the first aspect of the cosmogonical trinity stated as chaos, Gaia, Eros, all of them being ideas and aspects which can be met with different names or terms further down in the Secret Doctrine, in other stanzas of both the first and the second volumes. Therefore, to conclude, I will say that since we are still in the states of darkness before the new dawn, there can be no time, no universal mind, and no paths to bliss. Thank you for listening.
Dear Ifigenia, thank you so much for the material presented by you. You have actually gathered analogies from different teachings and directions of philosophy, which of course can help us to understand the stances of Dzyan's. So when we study these stances and also contribute our own researches following these great books of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky as the voice of silence, light on the way, the key to theosophy, etc., then of course our understanding becomes more complete. And when we ask ourselves how the seven paths can emerge if there were no humans, well, if we can apply the law of analogy and assume that any path, first and foremost, presupposes one who follows it, the path exists always, but is only manifested when there is the one who follows the path. So there were no manifested seven paths because there was no one who could follow it, no humanity. And this is why when the stances of Dzyan say that there were no seven paths, we understand that we need to take a look at what the paths are, then they will be. And then by the use of the law of analogy, we see that there is no more problems or issues. So the system or method, when the stances of Dzyan say that there was no this, no that, it actually presupposes that they were, but they were unmanifested. And when we understand it, and then we meet in the fifth, fourth, sixth stances, these differentiations, we understand it. It is really beautiful. Thank you so much for being able to really tell us about your understanding. It was really great. Thank you so much, Evgenia. And our next speaker, sharing his discoveries on the fourth shloka of the first stanza, is Mr. Ram Prakash, United Lodge of Theosophists of India, Bangalore. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for. It's a pleasure for me to be participating in this webinar on the secret doctrine. We heard some very wonderful contributions. Now, I will give my understanding, my thoughts on the verse 4 of stanza 1. Let me read the verse to begin with. The 7 ways to bliss, moksha or nirvana, were not. The great cause of misery, nidhana and maya, were not. For there was no one to produce and get ensnared by them. Very beautiful verse. Few thoughts of mine are shared. What I'm going to share is my understanding of the verse under consideration. And in this presentation, I will put across some cross-references from the Secret Doctrine and ISIS unveiling in order to get some better comprehension of the tenets. It is said by the teacher that stanza 1 gives description of non-being or absolute being after the universal dissolution during Mahapralaya and before the first stirring of the cosmic reawakening. It is logical that such a state is unknowable as a triune differentiation of the one into the knower, the thing to be known, and knowledge are resolved and merged into the absolute unity. The beauty of the stanza is that the verses afford us to impute an abstract conception of absolute unknowable by a series of negations, not this. And that is none of the abstract principles and forces of cosmic construction, which periodically radiate from and finally merge into that. At the same time, it's a very negation of what are not existent. We are afforded a glimpse into the progressive stages of cosmic manifestation and mysteries of being as a prelude to later, more detailed exposition of cosmogenesis. Now, with the verse under consideration, we see that there are 3 important metaphysical truisms are impressed upon us. 1, the 7 paths or ways. 2nd, the 12 nidhanas, which bind souls to conditioned existence. And thirdly, the philosophy of Maya, like illusion. Previous speakers have already spoken about this. I'll be presenting the same ideas, but with a little more elaboration. To begin with, let's consider the 7 paths or ways. In the Transactions of Blavatsky Lodge, HPP teaches that the 7 ways to bliss are certain faculties which the student will know more when he goes deeper into occultism. In the Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, page 191, in the footnote, it is mentioned about the 7 ways of bliss. 7 ways of bliss are the 7 paths. They are described as the beams of light falling upon the path leading to wisdom. And it has also other connotations, astronomical and physical meanings, in which the 7 rays which fall freely from the macrocosmic center, 1, and the 7 principles in the metaphysical and 7 races in the physical sense. So every symbol concept has 7 planes of interpretation, 7 meanings. So we can form some faint conception of this truism if we recall that 7 principles of man, the microcosm, are derived from and indissolubly linked to the macrocosmic 7 sephiroth, or the 7 planetary spirits, and that the celestial Jharibuddhas to be the angel star of every individuality, higher ego. This is explained in the ST in volumes, first volume, page 572-73, which we can recall. It's very important that each one of us, our individuality is linked forever, indissolubly, with one of the 7 primordial rays of the Logos. I quote from The Secret Doctrine, volume 1, page 571. The star under which the human entity is born, says the upper teaching, will remain forever its star throughout the whole cycle of its incarnations in one Manvantara. But this is not his astrological star. The astrological star is connected with, is concerned and connected with the personality, the former with the individuality. The angel of the star, or the Jharibuddha, will be either the guiding or simply the presiding angel, so to say, in every new rebirth of the monarch, which is a part of his own essence, though his vehicle, man, may remain forever ignorant of this fact. The adepts have each their Jharibuddha, their elder twin soul, and they know it, calling it Father Soul, the Father Fire. It is only at the last and supreme initiation, however, that they learn it when placed face to face with the bright image. So, quotation ends here. And let's consider the next truism, the 12 nidhanas. Earlier speakers have already spoken about it. I have taken some ideas from the Theosophical glossary. Now, karma, we are taught, is a ceaseless, unerring tendency in the universe to restore disturbed harmony, during which adjustment the beings who cause the disturbance feel the effects as pleasure or pain. Nidhanas are set in motion by acts committed for the attainment which gratifies personal desires. The 12 causes of existence are to be meditated upon. It is a collective action of the beings of all grades, which through the nidhanas cause the rebirth of universe in endless cycles of existence. And this is Mahamaya, the great illusion. The 12 causes of existence given in the Theosophical glossary, we'll briefly go over them. Jati means birth. Jati in Sanskrit is birth. The disembodied soul is said to re-enter physical life by one of the 4 modes called Chaturyoni, birth from womb as mammals to birth from the birth from the egg as birds and reptiles do, from moisture and air as germs, insects, etc., and by sudden self-transformation as bodhisattvas and gods do. Now, the next dhyana is decrepitude and death, jara marana, following the maturities of the panchaskandhas, 5 skandhas. The 5 skandhas are also dealt with as we proceed. Next is bhava, the karmic agent which leads every new sentient being to be reborn in this or another mode of existence on the Trilokya. And gati meaning world of desire, world of form, and the formless world. Next dhyana is upadana, the creative cause of bhava, which thus becomes the cause of jati or birth, which is the effect. The creative cause is the clinging to life, thirst for life. And that is the next dhyana, Krishna, love, whether pure or impure. Now, next dhyana is Vedana, sensation, perception by senses, the 5th skandha, and sparsha, there is sense of touch, and sharayatana, the organs of sensation, 5 organs of sense and mind on the physical plane or lower manasic plane, as well as on the higher manasic plane, sharayatana. And then next is namarupa, name and form, which is personality, a form with name and form, the symbol of unreality of the material phenomenal appearance. And next is vijnana, perfect knowledge of every perceptible thing and of objects in their concatenation and unity, because higher manas is directly related to vijnana. Samskara is action on the plane of illusion, which is the impression left on the mind by individual action, which like a seed sprouts leading to future birth. And lastly, avidya. Avidya is lack of true perception, ignorance. The 12 vidhanas are thus described. Now, we must recall an excellent passage in Isis Unveiled in volume 2, page 320, 320, a scientific explanation of the cause of bondage and the way of liberation by means of destruction of ignorance. I quote the passage, Nirvana means that the certitude of personal immortality in spirit, not in soul, which as a finite emanation must certainly disintegrate its particles and compound of human sensations, passions, and yearning for some objective kind of existence before the immortal spirit of the ego is quite freed and henceforth secure against further transmigration in any form. And how can man ever reach this state so long as the upadana, the state of longing for life, more life, does not disappear from the sentient being, from the ahankara clothed, however, in a sublimated body? It is the upadana, or the intense desire, which produces will. And it is will which develops force. And the force generates matter, or an object having form. Thus, the disembodied ego, through the soul undying desire in him, unconsciously furnishes the conditions of his successive self-procreation in various forms, which depend on his mental state and karma, the good and bad actions of the good and bad actions, good and bad deeds of the preceding existence, commonly called merit and demerit. This is why the master recommended to his mendicant the cultivation of the 4 degrees of jhana, the 4 noble truths, that is, the gradual acquirement of stoic indifference for either life or death, that state of spiritual self-contemplation during which man utterly loses sight of his physical and dual individuality, composed of soul and body, and uniting himself with his third and higher immortal self, the real and the heavenly man, merges, so to say, into the divine essence, whence his own spirit preceded like a spark from the common heart. This the arhat, the holy mendicant can reach nirvana while yet on earth, and his spirit totally freed from the trammels of the psychic terrestrial devilish wisdom, as St. James calls it, unquote. Now, finally, last point, the philosophy of Maya. The universe is called Maya because all is temporary there is, outside of absolute unity, in which cycles of existence turning their rounds, appearing and disappearing, are cycles of Maya. Maya illusion exists in our faculties of perception, which give us a view of a part of the whole of the manifested universe, and the part we see, we mistake to be reality. The ego has to exhaust all experiences of all planes of the manifested universe to arrive at self-contemplation of supreme reality beyond individuality and merge in it. It is only through the interminable series of rebirths throughout the great age of Brahma, assimilating experiences of manifold existences on all planes of being, reflection of Mahatma in its chief and its various degrees of intensity, that one gets rid of illusion of personal existence and merging into becoming one with the absolute and continuing in full possession of Paramartha. This is from the Secret Doctrine, page 54, volume 1, and page 81, volume 2. So this is a brief reflection or my understanding of the 4th verse of stanza 1. Thank you. Thank you all.
Dear Mr. Ramprakash, we thank you for your research and especially for that attention that you paid to Nidana and the necessity to meditate on the 12th reason of being. We suppose that today and on the seminars that we're having today as our work we are conducting today, we can have this collective meditation thought as practical one. We can implement it. Thank you very much for your attention that you paid to this point, and thank you for your time. It was very insightful, very interesting, and thank you for your deep understanding of the Sloka 4 stanza 1 that you shared with us. Thank you very much. Dear friends, so we are going ahead, and our next speaker is Ms. Elena Velit, Theosophical Society of the Ukraine, Kiev. Please, Elena, floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I'm thankful for invitation and opportunity to share my investigations, and I hope that they will be useful for somebody and interesting as well. And in the Secret Doctrine, the poem in the prologue emphasizes that the stanzas of cosmogenesis present the history of cosmic evolution as an abstract algebraic formula. I would like to point out that stanza is a formula. And although this formula, on the one hand, is algebraic, it is still emphasized that it is abstract at the same time. And I would like to see the figure 1. This means that stanzas as a formula are abstract, in some way unrelated to the usual perception of a particular reality. In such a formula, something is deliberately left out, not taken into account at all. There is a constant resort to abstract reasoning about metaphysical, physical, esoteric, and exoteric views. This abstract formula incorporates many worldviews about the world and the place of a man in it. This formula is about the formation of life within and beyond what is visible and accessible for the human being. Naturally, the fourth sloka of the first stanza is a part of this formula. And since this formula is both algebraic and abstract, we'll begin to study it first through a figurative representation. We use this tool to capture images on a sheet, like in this presentation. We will put these sheets in a clear sequence, reflecting this or that their content. In this way, the comprehension of the beyond the numinal, the first 5 stanzas, will gradually take place, and then the ultimate phenomenal, 6th and 7th stanza. This is how the formula of the great press will be constructed, closed in a concrete physical form. But within the first 5 stanzas, beyond the numinal, without forms, formless, as well as from entities originating from non-entities, but located within the framework of the single beingness. It is known that according to this formula, all the shlokas of all 7 stanzas cosmogenesis section from the transform of the original point. I want to remind about the agreement of Brahmins, which were agreed not to examine, consider non-being. It is known that according to this formula, all the shlokas of all 7 stanzas form and transform the original point. This initial point under changing external conditions and internal transformations turns into circles, triangles, squares, pentagons, and hexagons. All of them are always filled with some physical and metaphysical meaning, changing from shloka to shloka. The one who studies the stanza also understands that the first 5 of them completely lack any subject forms. And so they are not in this 4th shloka of the first stanza. This shloka refers exclusively to the pralaya period, where everything is still formless. It should be noted that shapeless objects are called objects, whose shape does not resemble any of the simple geometric shapes. All they are objects of an aesthetically unattractive shape. But the absence of object forms does not mean the complete absence of what is made of these forms were formed in the past Manvantara, or will be created in the future. It is believed that the very first object from form is a triangle. Everything simpler is formless, but it becomes the building material for the constructions of all the updated forms in the new, one of the series Mahamanvantaras. We are talking about points, commas, lines. All these are considered formless, but it is existing. And in Mahapralaya too. When studying the fourth shloka of the first stanza, it is important to keep in mind that this whole stanza tells about the state of unitotality in the Mahapralaya. And only in the sixth and seventh stanzas is initiated a description of the beginning of the world Manvantara, when the entire phenomenal universe, before it was not nominal, a universe already manifested will have to be evolved again. That is, again. It means that it is not the first and not the last. When we are talking about the part of the general formula at the first time of the fourth shloka of the first stanza, it is worth remembering the first shloka. This is important because it is the beginning of the formula. The beginning represents the eternal parent mother. Once again, slumbering for 7 eternities. The parent is female because it describes a situation when outer space is not yet filled with any activity. And only at the first stage of the awakening of this space to manifest life will it begin to be called Father-Mother. However, no matter what stage of its transformation we are talking about, the invisible lace of both is the mystical root of all matter. When we are talking about the universe, the noumenal and the phenomenal, both. Also, to understand the formula, it is important to know for yourself the mention of not one single eternity, but 7 ones. This should lead to understanding of the relativity of absoluteness. It is important to understand that absoluteness is not constant. It's not constant value. It varies within a single all-space from place to place. Otherwise, if the eternity was as one homogeneous, and even with the same potential at each of these points, then where would the mention of at least 7 of them come from? It is also important to note here that we are talking about 7 eternities within one very specific Mahapralaya. It's not abstract, not related to the one Mahapralaya. It is united, limited, part of space, but existing in the non-being, like Mahapralaya. This should prompt us to think about the complexity and heterogeneity of what is considered eternal. This is a very concrete indication that the state of absoluteness contains different eternities in its content. They are perfect inhomogeneities because of shapeless, formless. Because of their perfection, they are considered absolutes. Helena Rorich told when she translated from English to Russian, absolutes, the term was translated like absolute. And that makes difficult to understand which content has this term. In my opinion, as Helen Blavatsky and Rerich, it will be more correct to use absoluteness, to use the term absoluteness. And these two inhomogeneities can be combined into various formless complexities and structures. It is important to understand that not in form, but in content. It's also important that content as well as images is considered to be objectively formless. So when something is filled with content, it is considered formless, and it is the key to understanding what the stanza is talking about. As I already told, they can differ among themselves in the potentials. You can use the level of consciousness, the possibility of action. On the top of the inactivity that is present inside each eternity due to the absence of any object carriers, that is, forms as object vehicles. We mentioned already high and lower manas as a material conductor. We don't have any forms and carriers. Precisely these potentials of the various seven eternities will give all the impulse to everything that will be consistently awakened in them, turning into something. In this way, object forms will arise, filled with the consciousness of the awakening seven eternities, naturally within the framework of the one that during Mahapralaya exists as one by itself, holding its breath. The second shloka of the first stanza continues to reveal the formula by forming an idea of time in seven eternities within the infinite duration of the one. In the third shloka of the first stanza, it is said that there are no objective carriers of the universal mind because the carriers are still disembodied, i.e., but it is enough to remember that the formula is abstract. Then it becomes clear that something is deliberately left out at this point in order to simplify the understanding of the general formula. Namely, there are no carriers in the Mahapralaya, but there is an absolute mind within which his Mahapralaya exists. And finally, part of the formula is revealed in fourth shloka of the first stanza. Here it is indicated that there are no seven ways to achieve blissfulness. What is it about? Again, we recall that all these seven stanzas are description of the seven stages of the evolutionary process. However, what kind of evolution can we talk about when we are talking about the Mahapralaya? And stanza first tells exactly about violety's deepest phase. In the Mahapralaya, there is nothing phenomenal that is sensuous, that is capable of feeling. Here, everything has completely lost its previous forms and is in a state of complete rest, becoming pure consciousness. Here, everything that has lost its forms has retained the degree of its awareness, the maximum of which was achieved in its active living during the completed Mahamanvantara. This degree of completeness in the Mahapralaya is considered perfect. That is absolute for the form that no longer exists. There is a physical absence of those and that who and what can express any feelings that lead either to the attainment of blissfulness or to suffering. That's why there can be no one and nothing feeling essential here. It is only later, before the dawn of the new Manvantara, that the supreme deity, Atman, absolute Parabrahman, will awaken from his unmanifest state and give another impulse to who and what will manifest as the path. Only afterwards, moving along the path drawn by the plan or by formula, everyone will experience their own or group charm and disappointment, their own or group bliss and suffering. Only afterwards, there will be all that first begins to provoke in itself and out of itself different desires, followed by certain actions that form a new karma or complete the old one. It's important to understand that fourth sloka of the first stanza as part of the formula says so far about the absence of physically well-built and well-trodden paths. These can be line throughs for the life of future physical forms, the living in the attainment of either blissfulness or suffering. No paths, no forms. There is only a matrix. Only one thing held its breath, because there was nothing else there. The darkness was there, and everything was first veiled in deep darkness. And it is darkness, there is nothing that can follow the path and gain its existence of their blissfulness or suffering. And only after something or someone is formed, and their combination gives rise to action, there will be a movement of dense physical forms throughout the matrix. In the meantime, in the Mahapralaya, there is neither bliss or no suffering. Where are they? Stanza 2 second provides a more detailed description. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for the material presented. Dear members of the research group, dear listeners, of course, we cannot open up the whole depth and sequences from the Sloka 4 of Stanza 1 during one workshop, which is impossible, and you know that it is not our goal, but we see the direction which we can use to think, to discover thoughts from the sacred text of Dhyan. We can take it, it is possible, and every listener of this workshop today might be able to get their own understanding of the stanzas. And if we manage to present some sort of system today, this kind of framework, then every one of us can build our own understanding around it. And this is really precious as the creation of the single form of the thought. My dear listeners, I would like to present my own thoughts, which I had when studying the fourth shloka, and I actually spotted some specific elements of it, which are Maya, which are the universe, which only existed in the divine thought, which of course also the seventh way to bliss, which is the absolute being. So we know that bliss is the absolute being. This is human also, who can liberate from different miseries. And Helena Petrovna explains to us that everything existing doesn't have any absolute reality, only a relative one, because the visibility for the hidden noumen for this observer depends on their cognitive abilities. We also take into account the fact that everything is relatively real, so the cognizer is also a reflection, and all things comprehended by them are also very real for them, as much as themselves. And when moving, when developing themselves, we may actually understand that the stages we are passing through mistake these shadows for reality. So the absoluteness are those states of permanence, and only their reflection is about the space where movement begins. These aspects are those I would like to consider today: Maya, illusion, ignorance, human nidhanas, and liberation from delusions, as well as seven paths. What are these seven paths to bliss? Well, if we take into account the plans of being, we can see how things develop from the single, the first, second, fifth, fourth, etc., till the seventh, till the physical plane. And from the plane of prototypes, which are the part where we're talking about nirvana. These are the blue numbers you see on screen. It moves through its own arc. It is the human evolution. It is also 7, and also the most dense physical plane till the single one, backwards. So, what is this number 7? It consists of internal sequential numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you add them all up together, you get 28, which equals 10. So it means that there is 10 and 7. 10 is 10 and Sifrat, actually about 7 spheroids. 7 of them are manifested and 3 of them are not. They are unmanifested as the causes, so they are 10 centiroids. Or the single ray, the symbol of this movement, it is 10. It is the diameter in a circle. The 7-ray star is also the symbol. There were no 7 paths to bliss, and it also symbolizes this path. 6-ray star with a point in the center. Again, the ways, there were no ways to bliss. The combination of these septenary aspects, if we take them from the single to the physical planes and from the plane of prototypes, so from the physical plane to the single plane, we see some combination of numbers following the schemes, and their combination equals 84 or 12. But, well, what is 12 if 12 are the 12 nidanas? The nidana is, of course, the combination, the relation between cause and effect, and the list of main causes which, in accordance with the karmic law, bring about the most sensuous reaction or consequences. So Maya is everywhere, and where we have end and beginning, but since everything is the aspect of eternity, according to Helena Petrovna, then Maya is, of course, in a sense, an aspect of Sat. It is eternally present in the universe, both during Manvantara and Mahapralaya. Even Nirvana is also Maya, if you compare it with the Absolute. Not only ourselves, but the whole visible universe, meaning the transitionary manifestation of the single whole without an end, a beginning which ever was, is, and will be present. This infinite and beginningless whole that has always been and will be unchangeable is the absolute. It is unchangeable, but its reflection is the state of space where the motion or change can begin. Maya is a manifestation, this impetus for awakening nidanas. And we can say that it awakens the forces for manifestation. If we take into account the thought that nidanas are forces, well, every force is a transition from one state to another. Then it can concatenate, expand, and push out at the highest point of the arc into another state. So it connects the opposites. It expands, meaning that it merges with the unity, and pushes out, giving an impetus to the new transition. Let us have a look at the nidanas in sequential order, clockwise, the centrifugal force, and counterclockwise centrifugal force. So the first nidana is Jati, bird, tiger, hare, dragon, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, boar, and ox. So birth, aging, karmic agent, creative cause of bhava, love, senses, organs of senses, that sense of touch, personality, the knowledge of all perceptible things, action, and ignorance. And backwards, we can also move backwards, and you see how these numbers are aligned from tiger head, dragon, snake, horse, etc. to the last nidana. The interesting thing here is that when we combine these numbers given to us by the movement of nidanas, centrifugal movement, centripetal movement, we get the combination of numbers, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Let's take a look at it. Let's see how they are combined. Every nidana, tiger, hare, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, boar, mouse, ox, etc., in their combination, counterclockwise and clockwise, give us the same number. The number is 13, so 13 is every nidana. 13, 4 in total, is the manifestation of the internal state. When it is manifested, there is this fourth dimension, or the volumetric vision, single 1 in 3, which becomes the center. This is how the center created. And we can say that every nidana is number 13, the sacred number. It is the center of events. The centripetal force opens up opportunities. Centrifugal force opens up abilities, and the combination of them gives us ability, skill. So combining two sequences of nidanas, counterclockwise and clockwise, we reach the state of cause and effect combined together as unity. And in the synthesis of understanding, miseries disappear, for there is no light or darkness, no good or bad, there is just the state of unity. And when we thought everything was in darkness, but everything was in absolute light, in fact. So we have 6 pairs of nidanas corresponding to this thought, the unity of opposites. In the secret doctrine, these 6 steps, 6 sounds, 6 voices, as Helena Petrovna writes, are those things, you see? When 6 sounds or steps were expressed, the apostle was forbidden from writing them down. There was an instruction to hide them until the moment of the expression of the 7th voice, when the time will be over. Therefore, 6 is the synthesis or combination of 6 is 7 as completion and transition to a new state. Let us consider our 6 pairs of nidanas or opposites, which might open the transition to the new state, 7th state, the state where time no longer has its power over man. The first pair is tiger and bear, symbolized by birth and ignorance. So ignorance awakens birth. I did not know, for I was unaware, and you are born to understand the world and yourself, know who you are. The second pair is knowledge and accumulation. Hare and mouse, the accumulation of knowledge. We need to accumulate knowledge, not anything else. The third pair, dragon and boar, manifestation and wisdom. We need to manifest, express wisdom because this is consciousness. The next pair is reason and personality, snake and dog. The personality which affirms the reason, so the person must become reasonable. The next pair, horse and rooster, law and glory. Law is glorious, and glory is a manifestation of the law. And the last pair is love and harmony, which is goat and monkey. Love brings about harmony, and harmony is manifested through love. So by the combination of these two opposites, these two forces, centripetal and centrifugal, cause and effect, it all brings about balance. And when they have balance, when they have equilibrium, the causes for sufferings disappear. For the one who broke the equilibrium disappears, which are clashes of nidanas, anger, lie, ignorance, and so on. Then it turns out that the ability, the skill, or the combination of possibilities, of opportunities and abilities, is the cognitive ability which responds to the hidden noumenon, Helena Petrovna writes. The ability to learn to combine opposites, to connect them. So the one who can connect the opposites has synthesis and can manifest beauty and harmony, restoring balance. This balance is the victory of time, and Fahad, or its emanation, is responsible for that, bringing this first harmony and beauty. This is the plane of mind and creativity, the creative force. And everything which gets in the way of the cyclicity and movements of the emanation of Fahad, or penetration of this emanation, it destroys balance. The ethereal substance begins to thicken till it reaches such a degree of density that there is no movement of impetus, no up, no down. So the creative logos is a radiant force, and it can no longer send its beneficent forces, beneficent rays. So if the 7 sons of Fahad correspond to motion, light, sound, heat, connection, electricity, and magnetism, which is the 7-ray star, and they are able, like ether, to penetrate, then their absence, the absence of motion, the absence of light, of heat, of electricity, connection, magnetism, it interferes with this progress and it destroys the balance. The great causes of misery were not, for there was no one to produce them and get ensnared by them. Maya, as a manifestation, awakens the Nidanas, and it produces the Nidanas. They are produced by the mind, by the human, which is tricked by illusion, since the illusion of temptation arises from the state of separation. So once we have separated ourselves from the single, there is illusion. There are causes for sufferings, and Nidanas as moral factors brought about by this illusion. The feeling of this reality is in the root of every evil. So it means that evil is suffering. And if we take a look at the planes of existence, planes of being, these sufferings, many of you have already mentioned it, the sufferings. We see that suffering is the physical plane, the causes for suffering, the material and educational plane. The end of suffering is the plane of man and creativity, and the destruction of the causes reaching the great truth is the plane of prototypes. The plane of spirit is this triangular in a circle, which is the great truth, where illusion disappears, paranirvana. And through the plane of prototypes, reaching the plane of spirit beyond forms. This is what is meant by destroying the causes for existence and reaching the great truth from the plane of prototypes to the plane of spirit. Let us take a look at the combination of Nidanas based on 4 truths. The combination, the sum, so the sum of 12 Nidanas are 3, and 4 truths plus 3 are 7. So 7 are the 7 ways to bliss, which were not. The combination of Nidanas 3 is based on 4 truths, which equals 7, the 7 ways to bliss. And the 4 truths are on the plane of prototypes, the plane of mind and creativity, the material and educational plane, the physical plane. So these are the 7 ways to bliss, which were not. There were no causes for sufferings, no 4 ways, no 4 planes, no differentiation, and no reflection of illusion, no separation. Everything was still in the state of unity. There was no dissection between matter and spirit, and if at the plane of prototypes the causes for being disappears and at the plane of spirit illusion disappears, see the triangle in the circle, paranirvana, the plane of spirit. So the spirit of the human moving through all planes sooner or later reaches its essence. Means that it is back to itself and it is liberated. The human spirit, in order to acquire their essence, will need to move through mayas. When they reach the primeval fire, they get the freedom lost in maya, and hence the spirit returns to itself while acquiring beauty and freedom. The eternal spirit remains in inviolable integrity in all worlds and in its own, for it is present where it is absent, and absent where it is present. The simple ways to bliss were not simple, complicated, and beautiful. This is the vision of this system, which I would like to share with you. These are my thoughts. Dear members of the research group, dear speakers, thank you so much for your very informative materials of the seminar, of the workshop on the 4th Sloka of the first stanza of Dhyan. Today, each and every one of us has been really sincere about sharing your thoughts, and these thoughts, these experiences are precious. I would like to invite the members of the research group to express your opinions about the materials presented today. I would like the director of the European School of Theosophy, Erika Georgiadze, to speak. Please, a few words about today's seminar, about the materials presented. Erica, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I think that has been a wonderful seminar. I enjoyed it very much. It was very enlightening. And I'm very glad that you have been doing the work that you are doing that allow us to go in more depth in the secret doctrine and all the stanzas and the slokas. So congratulations for all the speakers and for the wonderful work organized today.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much, Mr. Urkan Kwan. Could you please say a few words? This is our colleague, the professor.
This is our colleague, professor from South Korea. Please, the floor is yours. A couple of words from you.
Thank you very much. It's a good seminar. Last time we studied about the Ahi, remember? Ahi was the kind of spectrum of light which make possible the photosynthesis. It makes embryology, remember the bioscience. So it is a good concept for the evolution theory based on the bioscience. I think it was very helpful to me to understand the science in the secret doctrine. Actually, the Theosophy is the science, as Mrs. Blavatsky said. So this is a very match to the science. This time, today, there are two kinds of concepts very important. First one is a concept of Maya, and second one is the brains, two brains actually, the cerebral and cerebellum. One is a big brain, the other one is small brain, kikris. So the second one, I mean, the brain is very matched to the bioscience. It's okay, but the Maya concept of Maya, the first one, there is some mention about creationism of God. Create God is the personalized Maya. So it favor about evolution instead of creationism. So it matched to the science. So I like too. Also, it was very helpful to understand the science as the Blavatsky said in the secret doctrine. The whole theory of the secret doctrine is very scientific. So theory of evolution. So very helpful to understand about the secret doctrine. Thank you very much today, your speakers. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо большое. Госпожа Ритва Лапия.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ritma Lapis today is one of our members of research group, the Theosophical Society of Finland. Dear Ritma, could you share a couple of thoughts with us?
This is a splendid day. There is wonderful lectures, but I think very, how can I say, practical level, this 12 links, when I listen your presentation, what's really mean that there is not 12 links in my life if I'm thinking. My karma, all links in my karma. And when I am free, I haven't links, I have nothing of this kind. And when Buddhist idea told emptiness,
What's really mean emptiness and freedom? This secret doctrine is very deep level Buddhist esoteric philosophy, and I have a lot of thoughts, but I want to what you said last. I don't remember your name, but a lady was give last presentation when you spoke harmony. I think so. When Vajrayana Buddhists told how is all in this life is material. There is bad and there is good, but harmonia is between something, and this is devolution when we go away this path and spiritual path, and it's amazing. I cannot say more because so much I have had now thoughts, but thank you very much. But thank you very much.
Dear Ritma, thank you very much for your feedback. Today, we have Vice President of Blavatsky from Kemerovo, Ludmila Razovayeva. Ludmila Alexandrovna, please, could you share a couple of words with us? Hello, dear participants. Thank you very much for your presentation. Good afternoon to all presented here participants. I would like to thank the organizers, Vladimir Vasilyevich, Ifigenia Mikhailovna, for very interesting presentations, for the speakers, and Sergey Vitalyevich Kolganov, and to all speeches, all presentations, Ifigenia Kastamoniti, Mr. Ramprakash, Elena Merlitz, all ideas, all speeches were very interesting. And I'd like to note that the time when we spent together learning these things, these are the time of 9 weeks of creation, starting from the 21st of March, starting from the red rabbit, and up to the 13th of May, the 9 weeks will be over, and it will be a manifestation of the creative mind, which we are learning, which we are looking into, and we can use these energies in order to understand better, in order to enjoy better the space and get some insight. So I wish to everybody to spend this month of March and White Tiger to go to April and White Rabbit, their birth of Elena Petrovna Blavatsky, and achieve knowledge, achieve wisdom in the black dragon, which is wisdom. I wish everybody a grateful, fruitful work. Thank you very much for this seminar. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks to all the speakers. Thank you very much.
Yes,
thank you. Connection with India. Kelly, if you hear us.
Yes, I would love to. I want to say thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I was just looking at my notes. I wanted to say thank you so much for the translators. I know it's difficult bringing in all of these different languages. A lot of you, English is not your first language. This is a fantastic presentation. So much work going into this. I wanted to say thank you to Vladimir, talking about the control of the thoughts and feelings in the year of ignorance and overcoming ourselves. That's what these teachings are here for, to teach us to overcome ourselves. And Sergey, talking about the sufferings of Buddha and the eightfold path, that fear is felt by those around us, that what is happening on the inside is reflected on the outside. This is where all of it takes place, inside of ourselves. I wanted to thank Ifigenia. Thank you so much for sharing on the Voice of the Silence. It was really helpful to bring in these additional texts. That was a fantastic presentation, dear. And also Mr. Rama Prakash, thank you so much for yours as well. The paths of wisdom on karma and fleshing out the microcosm, the macrocosm. For Elena, the cosmogenesis, talking about the algebraic formula, bringing in these very important, this science, this is divine science and divine knowledge, and you're making it understandable. It's so valuable, all that you are doing. We also had Eugenia, thank you again, talking about the divine thought and the end of suffering in the mind and the way you explain everything. It is such an honor to be here with all of you. It is so important because right now is the time to get these teachings out into the world, because Theosophy is humanity's textbook, and this offers Theosophy just simply offers a solution to every problem, every issue, every experience that humankind can experience. And this will help to ease the unnecessary suffering of all beings on our planet. So what you are doing here is a work of works. Thank you for all that you are and do. I love you. Thank you.
Госпожа Анна Келли, огромное спасибо.
Ms. Anna Kelly, thank you very much. Mr. Pandey, India, if you can hear us, could you share a couple of words with us?
Yes, thank you very much. I've been listening with great interest, all the speakers and points made by some of the later presenters. It has been very interesting. And we have taken first sloka, our first stanza, which is Night of Universe. And to describe Night of Universe, that is complete negation, is rather very difficult. A person, a man cannot comprehend the negation. He can comprehend the positive things, existence. Non-existence comprehension is very difficult. And that's why the structure of the stanza in so many slokas is gradually taking us from stage to stage, non-existence. First is parent is not there, then time is not there, then mind is not there. And this sloka comes 7 ways of bliss is not there. A lot of material has been covered. I would like to add only a few points. The 7 ways of bliss have been explained very nicely, but it can be understood in many ways. For example, 7 levels of consciousness in nirvana, 7 subplanes of the Atmic plane, the 7 kinds of nirvana, then 7 paramitas has been rightly told. Then 7 choices are given after nirvana, and 7 paths, out of which the Nirvan Kaya, Sambhog Kaya, and Dharm Kaya are 3 the prominent one, and the 7 rays. I think this can be understood in these ways, and a study has been definitely very helpful, and I congratulate the organizers to continue this project. And this will help deepen our knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Erica has a question.
Dr. Sergey Nased, I would like to ask you, what do you think about the doctrine of anatma? You mentioned it in your lecture, which I found it highly philosophical. Thank you so much for your philosophical approach. What do you think about the doctrine of anatma? Do you think is there anything which is permanent or nothing at all?
Thank you very much for your question. It's extremely difficult to answer this kind of questions. Yet we know that Buddhism is often called a religion without God and without immortality of soul. It is not exactly true. Just if we consider the conception of Maya, a lot for us is hidden. And depending on the level of consecration, the level of understanding, human being can find the truth. Some individual explanations, individual understanding of this question are extremely difficult because for some religious people, this doctrine is liberating us from any life statement. But for somebody who achieves absolute conscious, a cosmic conscious, is happy about it. It fills him with happiness. This is the only idea that I would like to share about the Atman doctrine. Thank you very much. So you see, we have different opinions, different thoughts on different approaches. Yet, if we follow the same system, the system of mutual understanding, which is based on the fundamental work is the secret doctrine, we can be in the same space and understand each other. Dear friends, philosophists, scientists, we thank you all for your presence here, for your work, for the organization of this seminar, for making it possible to have this seminar. Thank you for your speakers. Thank you for your work, dear interpreters. Thank you, our listeners, who were asking questions, who were sharing comments, who were paying their attention. Traditionally, we will publish all the questions and answers in our video for Theosophical quiz. Thank you for your work that you do for Theosophy today. We're not saying goodbye forever. We are going to be in touch. Stay tuned, and we will share the information. We will meet during the next seminar on the 30th of April at 3 p.m. Moscow time. Peace, love, and light to you. Thank you.
The Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky. Dedicated to all true Theosophists. Book of the Third Millennium.
Blavatsky only knew.